All right, 7 questions on your quiz tomorrow. These formulas will be given to you on a sheet of paper. You will have 1-word problem. You guys just draw a triangle, write down the information that you have, answer the question. You need a calculator. If you don't have a calculator, you've got to get one before you get in here. Make sure that you guys have one, please. You need to be mindful of units. If it says feet, if it says meters, if there's a degree, you have to have your units on there. And also, if it's area, it needs to be squared. If it says to round to 3 decimal places, then round to 3 decimal places, or 2, or whatever. I will post this version of the review on my playlist today. In modules, once you guys leave, I'm going to pull in my quiz review from last year where we worked every single problem out. It'll be in modules, so that'll be there for you as well. All right, if I look at number 1, or 6, I should say, sorry. On your quiz, the question will start off saying, using law of sines, using law of cosines. So it'll tell you what to do. In this case, we didn't, just because you guys got to think a little bit. Think about the different situations you could have. If you have the law of sines, if you're given 2 angles, you just find the third one and then you're good to go. But if you're given 2 sides and an angle, what are the possibilities with law of sines? You could have no triangle, you could have 1 triangle, or you could have 2 triangles, right? We've got to account for that. When you're using the law of cosines, you need to make sure that you are going in order. If you're finding angles, you need to find the biggest angle, what? You got to find the biggest angle, what? First. And then go in order. Then find the medium one, then the small. If they start off giving you the smallest angle and you're finding the smallest side, then find the middle angle and then the biggest. Just go in order. But just remember that. So if we're looking at number 6, okay, the first thing I'm going to do is draw a little triangle. So I know that I'm going to say this is A, this is B, this is C. Angle B is 114 degrees, okay. Side B, that's across from B, is 4. Side A, which is across from angle A, is 25. Given this information, guys, would I start off using law of sines or law of cosines? Sines. I have a side length and its corresponding angle. So I'm going to say sine of 114 divided by 4 equals sine of A over 25. I did A because that's what we know something about. We don't know anything about C. We're going to cross multiply. So you have 4 times the sine of A equals 25 times the sine of 114. Divide both sides by 4. So you're finding the sine of A. Once you get that in your calculator, guys, go ahead and hit second sine, second answer. So 25 times the sine of 114 divided by 4 gives me 5.7. And then I'm going to say second sine, second answer, and I get what? Second sine, second answer. What's it tell me? Error. If I get an error message, what is that telling me about my triangle? There's no triangle, right? In order for you to get full credit on any of these problems, you have to show all of your work. If you just by chance guess that this one's a no triangle and you don't show all your work, you're gonna not getting credit for it. You have to show work. It says in the directions, show all work to receive credit. So make sure y'all are doing that. All right, let's look at the next one. Again, figure out the information that you have, what you're working with, what you're looking for, that sort of a thing. So here's my triangle dimensions. I have A, B, and C. Angle B is 28 degrees. Side B is 18.4. And side A is 19.6. So what am I going to start off using? Again, on your quiz, it'll say using the law of whatever. But what do I know I can use right now? Law of sines, because I have an angle measure and its corresponding side length. So I'm going to say to myself, well, wait a second. If I'm using law of sines and I have 2 sides and an angle measure, that means I could possibly have how many triangles? I could possibly have 2. I need to check to make sure. Yeah.
Can you repeat that? How do you know if you have 2?
If you have 2 sides and 1 angle and you're using the law of sines, you could have 2.
If you're just using the law of sines, but you have, like, let's say...
If you have 2 angles,
Yeah.
then it can only be 1. So I know that the given angle in triangle 1 is B, and it's 28 degrees. If there's a second triangle, angle B in triangle 2 will be 28 degrees. So let's go ahead. Let's use our law of sines. So we have sine 28 over 18.4. equals sine of A over 19.6. Why am I using A? You don't know anything else about any other piece of the triangle. So 18.4 times the sine of A divided by 18.4. So you come out with the sine of A, so 19.6 times sine 28, right? Divided by 18.4. What do you guys get? 0.50000.
Yeah.
All right. That's okay. Don't worry about it. Just hit second sign, second answer. And you get 30.000. So you found out that angle A is about 30 degrees. We'll round everything today for degrees to the degree, nearest degree. But on your quiz, it'll tell you. So you found out that angle A in triangle 1 is 30 degrees. Well, how would I figure out in triangle 1 what angle C is? You add 28 and 30, so 28 plus 30 is 58 minus 180. I got 122. Agreed? All right, well, how do you figure out, guys? Do you remember? How do we figure out if there is a second triangle? You find the supplement. You say 180 minus this angle. Well, 180 minus 30 is how much? 150. Now, how do you figure out if a second triangle exists? Add those two. It's 178. Is that less than 180? Yes. Is it teeny tiny? Yes, that's okay. That means angle C is 2 degrees. If you added those two angles and it was more than 180, you could just cross that out and say, oh, wait, there's only one triangle. So now you still have missing pieces. Your directions are going to say solve the triangle. We know all three angles now in both triangles. We know two of the sides in both triangles. What are we missing? We're missing side C in both of them. So you need to find side C in both of them. It's up to you guys to figure out all the pieces of information that you're missing and that you need to find. So again, we're going to go back to the very beginning. We're going to start with our original law of sine that we used, our proportion. Whoops, we did sine, what? Sine 28 over 18.4 equals the sine of 122 over little c. And then on the right-hand side over here, we're going to do sine of 28 over 18.4 equals the sine of 2 over c. Cross multiply and get your answers. So c times the sine of 28 equals 18.4 times the sine of 122. Divide by sine 28. And what's c? 18.4 times the sine of 122 divided by sine 28. 33.2. Okay, so 33.2. And then whatever the unit is, if it's feet, if it's meters, if it's yards, this just doesn't have any. Same thing over here. Sine 28 times c, doesn't matter how you write it. 18.4 times sine of 2. Divide both sides by sine 28. And little c over here, 18.4 times the sine of 2 divided by sine 28. 1.4, 1.36. So we'll say about 1.4. Now look, angle C is big in triangle 1, so side C is big in triangle 1. Angle C is teeny tiny in 2, so side C is teeny tiny. But this would be your full answer. You have to show me all of it. That make sense? All right, moving along here. This one asks for area. All right, it doesn't say to use this area formula. You guys need to know that. If I'm going to draw this triangle, I know it's not base times height divided by 2 because I don't have any right triangles. So here's A, here's B, and here's C. Angle B is 10 degrees. Side A is 4. Side C is 7. So you're going to have two area formulas on your sheet. One of them is Heron's, where you have all three sides. And one of them talks about having two sides and an angle. You need the two sides and the angle that does what? That connects them, that's in between. Now, the formula says 1/2 times. I like to just say divided by 2. So it's 7 times 4 times the sine of angle divided by 2. I need to see that step. It says in the directions, show all work to receive full credit. You have to show me what you guys are doing. This is not a calculator test. So show me what you plug in. I got about 2.43, right? Feet squared. Now, these directions say to the nearest square unit. So if it was to the nearest square unit, this would be 2 feet squared. If it was to 1 decimal place, it would be 2.4 feet squared. Just follow the directions on rounding and make sure you have your units. You understand what I mean by that? Okay. All right, again, your problem will say using the law of sines, using the law of cosines. I understand it doesn't here, but we can figure this out. I have A, I have B, and I have C. So they gave me side A is 6, side B is 9, and angle C is 115 degrees. Can I use the law of sines to solve anything right here? No. I have to have a side length and its corresponding measure. I don't have that. But I can find that missing side. I can find C. Now, some of you get hung up on which of the cosine formulas to use. When you set this up, I'm looking for C squared. That means whatever side you're looking for, the angle that's in the problem goes on the other end. So you just take the two sides that you have, 9 squared plus 6 squared, minus 2 times 9 times 6 times the cosine of 115. Now, guys, please pay attention to this. This has to be, you're going to do it in pieces. If you want to do it all on your calculator at one time and you're good at that, and you don't make any mistakes, that's fine. But when you have to do the multiplication on the right before you can combine it with the addition. So on this side over here, 9 squared and 6 squared gives me 117. Now, when you do, and I made this mistake earlier because I was going 100 miles an hour, when you say 2 times 9 times 6 times the cosine of 115, you get negative 45.6277. But guys, think about it. It's minus that. So minus a negative is really what? Plus. So make sure you're paying, if you do it all in one step, that's fine. But if you don't, make sure that you realize there's a negative sign there. So if that value is negative, then you have minus a negative, which would make it a plus. So if I add 117 to that, I get C squared equals 162.6427, something like that. I want to know what C is, though. So what does C equal? What's the square root of that? Something about 12.8. Units, whatever it is, yards, feet, whatever. All right, now that I found angle C and side C, what do you guys notice? You now can use the law of sines. Now, so angle C is obviously the biggest because there's only 180 degrees in a triangle, so the other two can't be bigger than 115. So go in order. What would be the medium-sized angle? B. So let's find B. Let's say the sine of 115 over 12.8 equals the sine of B over 9. We've done this 18,000 times. Sine 115 times 9 equals 12.8 times the sine of B. Divide by 12.8. So the sine of B equals, what's 9 times the sine of 115 divided by 12.8. 0.637, something like that. So second sign, second answer, and I get 39.58. Well, if I'm going to round that to the nearest degree, angle B is about how much? About 40 degrees. All right, so let's see. Is there any other piece of the triangle that we're missing? What do we not know yet? Angle A. How do you find A? You're going to add 115 and 40 and get 155. Yes. 180 minus 155 is what? 25 degrees. So angle A is 25 degrees. Now just take an inventory real quick. Is the biggest side across from the biggest angle? Yes. Is the smallest side across from the smallest angle? Yeah. So you guys are good. If for some reason it ends up where it's not, go back and recheck your calculations, or whichever second angle you found the other one. Find the other one.
So how do you know which form to use the law of cosines again? Like,
It'll tell you in the problem.
How do we know, like, when if there's one or two triangles? Because this one has two sides and one angle.
Law of cosines is only one. In the problem, it'll say using law of cosines.
So then there's no...
Scoot along. We're almost done. 2 more. All right. Again, the problem will say on your quiz, using the law of sines, using the law of cosines. So you'll know what to do. But looking at this, guys, can you use the law of sines? No. You don't have the angle measure that corresponds with its sides. So when you are given all 3 sides, what do you have to find first? Which angle? Got to find the biggest. So again, if you're hung up on which formula to use, think about it. You're finding the cosine of A. So in your formula, you're going to subtract side A. So it doesn't matter what you make, B and C, B and C, minus, 4 squared plus 6 squared minus 9 squared over 2 times 4 times 6. So simplify. 4 squared plus 6 squared minus 9 squared. What is it? What'd you guys get? Negative 29. Good. What's 2 times 4 times 6? 48. Oops. So this says cosine A. So cosine A is negative 29 over 48. So in your calculators, you could put it in like that. You could say cosine and then put in negative 29 divided by 48. You could divide it and then use whatever. But you get 0.99999. Now, second cosine, second answer. What do we get? How much?
127.
Yes, your angle A is 127 degrees. That's pretty big. So angle A is 127, all right? That's good. What are the other things we need to find? I got to find the other angle. So if I know that this is 127, what is now the law that I can use? Law of sines. I have a side angle and its corresponding an angle and its corresponding side. So sine 127 over 9. Now, what's the medium size angle? We started off with large, so let's go to medium. What's the medium size angle? Why is it B? Because the side's 6. Good. Not just because the way it looks. You got to go with the measurement. So sine of B over 6. So cross multiply. You have 6 sine 127 equals 9 times the sine of B. Divide by 9. Let's see what angle B is. So 6 times the sine of 127, excuse me, divided by 9. 0.5324 second sine, second answer, because we're doing law of sines. I got 32.1. So it's about 32 degrees. Angle B is about 32 degrees. Now, you are welcome to use the law of sines again. You're welcome to use the law of cosines to find that last angle. But what is the easiest thing to do? To do what? Yep. Add the 2. 127 plus 32. What do you get? 127 plus 32. 159. And then what's 180 minus 159? 21. So angle C is 21 degrees. Now again, take inventory. Is the smallest angle across from the smallest side? Yes. Is the biggest angle across from the biggest side? Yes. So you're good. All right, last one. We have 3 minutes. We can do it. What do the directions say in this problem? Use Heron's formula. Of the two area formulas that are on the sheet, which one is the one with Heron's formula? The one that says sine in it, or the one that has the square root? The square root. Again, if you still are like, oh, can't figure that out, guys. If it has sine in it, that means you would have to have an angle measure, correct? Do you have an angle measure here? No, you have 3 side lengths. So that should tip you off onto which formula to use. Cross from B is 13, and here. Now, I caution you, you have to find the S value first. So it's 16 plus 13 divided by 2. In a lot of your calculators, if you do not put parentheses around the top, what your calculator would do is divide 13 divided by 2, and then add 32 to it. You have to tell your calculator, hey, add the whole numerator, then divide by 2. What do you guys get? 22.5, all right? That's your S value. So now we're just going to go through, and all of these things I need to see tomorrow on your quiz. You got to write this stuff out. You take your S value, which is 22.5, and you times it by the difference of the S value in all the sides. So you just say 22.5 minus 16. 22.5 minus 16. 22.5 minus 13. So you have 22.5. 22.5 minus 16 is 6.5. I have that twice, right? And then 22.5 minus 13 is 9.5. Guys, don't be afraid to just put stuff in your calculator. Some of you guys are going to try and go 100 miles an hour and make silly mistakes trying to do stuff in your head. If the calculator is next to you, use it. Don't worry about it. 6.5 times 6.5 times 9.5. I got, what'd you guys get? 9030.9375? Okay. And then take the square root of that. What do you guys get? About 95.03. All right, what do the directions say? Round to the nearest square unit. So it's about what? 95. What was the unit? Yards. And it's squared. All right, again, I will put this video on my playlist. I will also put Ms. Carver and I's from last year on modules, so you guys can look at that as well.